Explaining household income in the United States. There's a great deal of literature that attempts to understand what factors might affect income in the United States. In this presentation, we will look at some of these factors and explain the extent of their influence.
Research methods. Our research question for this analysis is, what factors influence household income in the United States? The dataset used was Public Opinion and Foreign Policy in the United States, 2006, with a total of 1,227 respondents. The methods used are regression analysis, control variable, and R-squared.
Our dependent variable is household income. We have three independent variables. The first is education. The literature in this field suggests that education has a positive impact on income. We hypothesize that households with members that have a higher education are more likely to have a higher income. The second independent variable is race/ethnicity. Literature shows that white, non-Hispanic Americans are more likely to have a higher income than Black and Hispanic Americans. This has been made into a dummy variable. We expect to see households with members that are white to have a higher income. Household size is also a factor that could influence household income. The larger the family, the higher the household income should be. The rationale for this is very basic. Larger families might have more sources of income, and they will actually need more money to function as a unit.
To test the real influence of our independent variables, we will introduce marital status as our control variable. We suspect that when the control variable is introduced, both education and race will continue to have a strong influence on household income. In addition, we suspect that the influence of household size on household income might be spurious because of the possibility of a relationship between marital status and household size. We hypothesize that while being married will have a positive effect on household income, being divorced, widowed, or separated will have a negative effect on income.
This chart shows the influence of the factors on household income. When we look at Model 1, which does not have a control variable, we see education, race, in this case being white, and household size all have a positive influence on household income, meaning that with increase in education, likeliness of being white, and household size, there's an increase in income. These values are all highly significant. From the adjusted R-squared value, we can see that model explains for 24% of the variation in household income. The model is highly significant with an F value of 0.0000.
In Model 2, we have added marital status as our control variable. We can see that while being married increases household income, being divorced, widowed, and separated has a negative effect on household income. But we can also see that while the married category is highly significant, the divorced, separated, and widowed is not significant. When we compare the factors influencing household income between both models, we see an example of replication in education and race. This indicates that marital status does not make a difference on the influence of education and race on income.
When we compare the b-values of household size between the models, we can see the difference that marital status makes on the influence of household size on household income. Since the b-value for household size drops more than a third of its value, we can conclude that there is an explanatory relationship. But because household size is a highly significant influence on income, the relationship is partial. Therefore, the relationship between household size and income is partially spurious. The R-squared value shows that the second model with marital status accounts for 30% of the variance in household income.
In our findings, the variables education, race, household size, and marital status are all factors influencing household income. The introduction of marital status does not affect the influence of education and race on household income.
The introduction of marital status creates a partially spurious relationship between household size and income. This relationship is an example of partial explanation. Because marital status does have an effect on both household size and income, but does not totally get rid of the influence of household size on income, which still remains highly significant. In our presentation, we have found factors that explain 30% of the variance in household income, and all except one category of marital status are highly significant. The largest factor of influence we have found is education. As literature had suggested, this is an important factor for income. The second largest factor was marital status. If we assume that this is a double income household, it would in most cases contribute to a higher income. The third largest factor that influences household income is race. There is a troubling correlation between being a white, non-Hispanic American and having a higher income. And the least of these factors is household size. Although still highly significant, this factor is the least influential.
For our conclusion, we have found that education, race, household size, and marital status all influence income. There is a political implication that race is a determining factor of income in the United States, but race should not be a determining factor of income because it raises inequality issues. Future research might be conducted by looking at the effects of race on income through other factors such as education. This might help in answering whether race has as big of an impact on income as the results have shown.